Good morning. So we're continuing with our book, Career of Happiness by Rav Avigdor Miller. And yesterday we discussed some of the do's and don'ts in marriage, right? After the 10 commandments of marriage, we said what we shouldn't really do in a marriage, or what we should do. So we're going to continue with this. The next thing he talks about is silence. He says, the Mishnah says, it declares, all my life I grew up amongst the sages, and I found nothing better for my body than silence. Yeah, this is a Mishnah in Avot. It says, we note that this is recommended at the best for the body, although it is unquestionably extremely beneficial for the soul as well. Not only with in-laws or with others, but also between husband and wife. This practice is the cause of longer lives in this world. Meaning, if you're going to be not talking too much, you're going to live longer, he says. For example, when your husband wakes up in the morning and he's ready to go to the synagogue, refrain from speaking. If anything must be said, wait until he comes back, has breakfast, sits down and eats, and then you can whatever it is that he says, yeah? The wife to the husband, right? Or the husband to the wife on other situations. Meaning he's saying, we have to practice silence. He says it's very good, yeah? He says, only when he returns home, or when he returns home for work, tired, yeah, worn out by customers and employees, yeah? Or because of competitors and so on and so on. He said, wait before you talk to him. Give him dinner, let him sit down, relax, take off his shoes, so on and so forth. And then after he's, give him a little bit of wine. And then after he's nice and mellow, you tell him, by the way, Slatki Moy, I wanted to tell you this and this. You hear? I wanted to mention this and that. And this way, he's a little bit more able to accept it. He says, same thing. When women complain about all kinds of problems, yeah, these, that, all my kids, that weekend, he says, you also listen to her, yeah? But he says, on all accounts, never disagree. This is a very hard thing, This is very. He says, never disagree. All you got to do is just yes, yes, yes. He says, yes, yes. It's the best. It's the best reply. Yeah, ish gamzul. Aruch Hashem, gamzul utova. Right. So he says, silence is the best preserver of health, and it can easily be observed in the results on the opposite. He says, when a person is not silent, what happens? You start to argue. You start to argue. In an argument, there's never a winner. You start to worry, then all of a sudden what? Person gets sugar, person gets hypertension, person gets whatever, and he says at the end of the day, person can get a heart attack and he dies. Why? Because it's just, you cannot take it anymore. Yeah? That's why silence is another thing. Yeah? We said what? Correct, silence. Do not hold on to a quarrel. And this is a very big problem. Do not hold on to a quarrel. To an argument, don't hold on to it. He says, okay, you messed up and you're not in an argument, good. He says, try to mend it as soon as possible. Remember, that was one of the 10 commandments, yeah? So here he's saying, don't argue. But if you did, don't hold of it. Many times it happens that we have some shtuyot happen. What happens? 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're holding that thing for no reason. He says, it happened. That's it. Leave it in the past. Let it go. This way it's out of your system. You hear? Now, why? Because he mentions over here, a woman once spoke to him and said, I'm divorced for 22 years. She's telling the rabbi. Why? Because she couldn't forgive herself for this. She says, when I had a certain situation with my husband, I held on to some stupidity. The thing got a little bit worse and worse and got it. And for nothing, they had a little bit of, we got divorced. And now 22 years she's not married, and she's saying, I made a big mistake. I should have just kept my mouth shut. And same thing with the other side, with the men as well. He says, there's certain things that we do that are not worth it. You hear? He brings another example where at one point the husband got upset, so he left. For a couple of days he left, and he calls back, says, where are you? Says, I'm over here. She goes, you know what? Stay there. For the fact that she said stay there, he stood there, and the marriage was dissolution. Yeah? Yeah.
She's in trouble.
Yeah.
Not him.
Yep. So he says, another thing he mentions over here is that parents should not meddle, as we said yesterday, should not get into the marriage issues of a couple. Says she should not go to complain to her parents. He should not go to complain to his parents. They should not involve parents at all. And parents should know themselves not to meddle in the relations of the children. Why? He goes, when a couple is fighting, he says, for some reason there's a thing where Hashem puts it in them that they, after a week or two, whatever, they're going to get back together and things are going to be okay. He says, but when the parents start getting to fight, it will never be okay. Why? Because in the midst of relations, they figure, okay, whatever, they forget about this stupid thing. But guess what? When the parents are involved, they never forget. And therefore they hold that grudge against either the domot or the kelin. And this thing, he says, will never mend. So therefore that'll always carry on. It'll be, that's why I said never involve the parents. And the parents themselves should never get involved. Let them be. Let them do whatever they have to do. If you need to advise, third party, Baruch Hashem, the rabbis, as he mentioned yesterday, that each one should have a rabbi. Yeah? He says a person should not hop shuls. Hop. Why? As the rabbi said, Mincha is here, Arabit is over there, Shacharit is over there, Mondays is over there, Thursday is over there. He says you should not do that. Why? You should have a bond with your rabbi. You should have a bond with community. Why? Because he says, the next one he's going to talk about, he says there's a thing called shame, the value of shame. You know what it means, value of shame? I'm going to be embarrassed. What are people going to say? What are my peers are going to say if I get divorced? You hear what I'm saying? It says, Bukharians had that thing, Odomot shimegun, right? What are people are saying? He actually mentions this. He says actually that when people say, Odomot shimegun, what are people going to say? This is actually a very good thing. Why? Because many times we're going to be embarrassed at the fact that our peers are going to look at us in a certain way because we got divorced. And therefore, we will protect ourselves and not get into a situation like this. You hear? So that's actually a very, very good thing. Another thing it says over here is that husband's obligation to work, which is a big issue with us. Yeah. What is he saying? He says when a person goes onto the chuppah, he writes a ketubah that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He mentions over here that it's really the husband's responsibility to work. Fortunately for us, we have a lot of boys, young men who are in kollel. He says, guess what? Kollel shouldn't be forever. When a woman decides to, I'm going to support by you in kollel, he says, it's not something that's a blanket lien on your ketubah. He says, no, you're still obligated. No. So he goes, there's a kollel guy who on Sundays used to put on his red shirt and used to be a waiter. Or used to go and help with various other things. To do what? To come and help the family. Yeah? He says over here, even if he began his marriage life as a kollel man, his wife has not obligated herself to support him forever. He is held responsible for his contract whenever it becomes necessary. Meaning, when she has already kids, 1, 2, or 3, now he has to get up and be a man and start working and supporting the family. It says the burden of parnasah is really on the man, as per the ketubah. Yeah? He says, although it may seem strange to some, the fact of the husband's constant presence in the house actually is unhealthy. He says a husband should not really be all the time at home. He should be really where? Not with his friends, hanging out, smoking cigarettes. No. He should sign up to a kollel, sign up to a little, chabura, 20 minutes a night, half an hour a night. Why? Because this way it brings a value to the relationship. Yeah? When you constantly, exactly. When you're constantly at home, you're not going to miss him. Therefore, when you're out in the kollel, you come, Slatimo, how are you, sweetie? Everything good? That's a big problem. If you're working from home and your wife is there, that's a major problem. So it might be even worth to get a little office for a couple $100 so that you could be over there and not be constantly in your presence of the wife. It broods, he says, it broods problems.
If your door is always closed.
I understand, but you're there. The availability is there. Honey gave me this, honey gave me that. You know how it works. It becomes, she's also home. Yeah, she's also home. Yeah, I mean, I know you have great shalom bayit, so I don't know how you do it. But I'm saying, he says the more you are with each other, the more problems it leads to. I know that our rabbis say that we have to talk to our wives. Guess what? It's talk about certain things, and that's it. Next thing you know, he says you gotta be as much less talk as possible, because that's what brings on issues. Okay, good. So now he's up to that we have to honor the parents. He says it's very important that a husband and wife should honor each other in front of the kids, right? Meaning the father should say to his kids, listen, get up, do this for your mom, get up, do that for your mom, talk respectfully to her, yeah? And the wife should also tell her kids, listen, when your dad comes in, exactly, your father's going to come right now, tidy up everything. Meaning there has to be an aspect of respect towards the parents, and we have to honor them as much as we can. In the next section, you know what he says? We must honor our in-laws. He says it's very important to honor you.
Number one.
Yeah, you have to honor your in-laws. But you know what he's saying? Even the in-laws that are no good. Meaning he's saying that a lot of times you're going to have mother-in-laws that are saying extra things. Father-in-laws that are saying extra things. He says, don't ever go against them. Just keep your mouth shut. Pretend you didn't hear it.
The man doesn't, the woman doesn't.
You're right. But he you know what he says? He says on the man part, a lot of times the father-in-law tells the son-in-law, listen, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And he says, who is he to you? Remember, he's your son-in-law, but he's not your son. Again, he is, but he's saying a lot of times, I think he's talking Ashkenazi terms, because I know by the Bukhari, by the we're in there, we're good at, but there is this thing, he mentions that, you know what, he's your son-in-law, but he's not your son. Meaning, don't overburden him with all kinds of things, do this for me, meaning,
don't take advantage.
Something like that. He says he might not want to do it, and therefore you're gonna cause a little bit of problems, and he's not gonna want to come to you. Yeah. He says, and you know what? There are many situations where you don't want to come to the in-laws. He says, when you do, just have a smile, tako kilo, yes, and go. Even if they say something to you, try not to listen. And this is a very big problem with us, because unfortunately, many of our parents, many of our grandparents, they were raised in situations where not the ideal situations. Yeah, people didn't know how to speak with the young people and so on and so forth. So what they learned, they transferred over to their lifestyle here. And we do see a lot of times where the in-laws don't say proper things to the kelim, to the demot. He says, don't take that seriously. Listen to it, but don't internalize it. Yeah, gufte, next. And then just move on. It's not worth it. Don't keep it. And then if you are hurt, don't show it, because that's going to brew even more problems. Honestly, on a spiritual level, this is the tikkun you have. Meaning this is the quote-unquote hit from Hashem that you have. What would you rather? Have a hand like this, or a mother-in-law who sometimes, gets on your nerves? Many people, you know what they choose? I'll choose a hand like this. Why? It's much easier to deal with. But they don't understand. All you got to do is just, in from this here, out to that here, and you're good. Another thing is no interference. Again, we mentioned this several times. Says no interference. Neither the in-laws nor the parents should not interfere in the marriages. We mentioned about burdening the son-in-law or the daughter. Telling her, listen, can you please do this? Can you please do that? At the end of the day, she's not your daughter. Yes, your daughter who grew up with you and who understands you and so on and so forth is different. But she's your daughter-in-law. It's a little bit on a different level, right? Good. Now, step-parents. He mentions that step-parents is a very crucial thing. Very crucial thing. He says you have to treat your step-parent as your parent. Yeah? If your mother-in-law, if your stepmother, let's say you have a father and you have a stepmother, and you want to invite your father, says ask your stepmother. Yes, I would like to. Don't ask your father. Call your stepmother. Tell, listen, I would like to, invite you guys. Meaning, be nice to them, because at the end of the day,
you tell your father, you make her to come.
It's a problem. So he says, be very. He says, he also mentions over here that yes, your stepson, stepdaughter is not like your real daughter. It's understandable, but try as much as you can to treat them. To treat them with respect. A final word. These are the matters, most of it is what we talked about, are the utmost of importance in the service of Hashem. When the Kohanim of the outgoing Mishmar of the sanctuary gave their blessing to the incoming Mishmar, back in the temple times, they used to have certain Mishmarot. Mishmarot used to be turns. They used to split up the Kohanim, and this one used to be 1 week, this one used to be second week, this one used to be third week. When the new Kohanim would come in, the second week Kohanim, the first week Kohanim would bless them. What would they bless them with? He says, they did not exhort them to be careful in the sanctuary service and its many, many important details. But they said, may he who put his presence in this house put among you love and brotherhood, peace and friendship. You hear what he says? He says they didn't tell the Kohanim that are coming, hey, be careful, make sure you sacrifice like this, make sure you do something, make sure you don't spill the blood like that, which is very important, because if you mess up on one of those things, it's a big danger. They didn't say that. He said, may he, Hashem, who put his presence in this house, in this Beit HaMikdash, put among you love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship. You see what kind of bracha they did? Yeah? So he says, therefore, even respectable and observant people must understand that these are the burning problems. You hear? He says, what's our problem? Our problem is that we don't have brotherhood, we don't have peace, we don't have friendship, and we don't have love. He says, that's our main problem. He says, a conflagration is raging on all sides today more than ever before. Separations, broken homes, din Torah, divorces are evident on all sides. Today's world is more uncivilized than ever before. And the Gentiles have become corrupted with immorality and disorderliness of society. And unfortunately, very many of our own are influenced by the demoralization of the outside world. You know what he's talking about? He's talking 30 years ago. Because this book was written 30 years ago. Imagine 30 years ago, but it was still good. There was no such thing as gay and lesbian outwardly like that. There was no such thing as 3 bathrooms. It was there, but it was hidden, and you didn't see it. He already saw this back then, he says. Yeah, that demoralization of the outside world is penetrating into our Jewish homes. And therefore our mentalities are changing to the worst, unfortunately. So he says, when one views the downfall of the Sotah, let him vow to abstain from wine, right? We just did Parashat Sotah. When we see her, that she went secluded with somebody else, the person says, okay, I'm not going to drink any more wine. Because wine brings, down a person. He says, when we see our generation veering off the righteous path, we must exert ourselves in the opposite direction, more than usual, in order to counteract this tendency. Chavot HaLevavot says, you hear? When he sees you're going down, Nabarot, you have to work extra hard to what? To maintain the spirituality. Therefore, do not say, I shall do as the previous generation did. Today, that is not enough. He says, in order to resist the harmful influence of our time, we must do better than the previous generation. And what are we doing? Imagine 80 years ago, how our ancestors used to dress, how our parents used to dress, how they used to think. And they were sure in good times. He says, now we have to do more than them. Which means if they prayed for an hour, we have to pray for 2 hours. We instead, we pray for 20 minutes. You hear? So he says, that's not going to help. He says, we now require energetic application of the best principles of behavior in order to send out the message of Kedusha in the Jewish home. When Bil'am saw the Jewish family, he said, what? How beautiful are your tents, O Yaakov. Bil'am, when he saw the tzniut of Am Yisrael, that their doors were not facing each other, that their windows were not facing each other, that they were facing the opposite way. And how is that? So many tents, He said, wow, how beautiful are your tents, O Yaakov. For nothing can equal a Jewish home. The tents of Yaakov are holy, no matter how humble and unfurnished, because they are full of Kedusha and pious. Loyalty to Hashem, decency and yosher and shalom. Bil'am became inspired and he declared, It is like rivers that will flow. These rivers are righteous behavior, will continue to flow from one generation to another. You hear what he says? He says they had nothing in the tents, no couches, no beautiful this, no beautiful that, but they were holy. Nowadays what? Everything is beautiful, couches, everything is gorgeous. But there's no holiness, no Kedusha. He says, therefore today, more than ever, it is the duty of the holy nation to reinforce the Jewish home as a sanctuary of Hashem, which endures in this world and in the world to come. That's what we say many times. We have to show our kids, our families, 1,000%, so that maybe they can do 20%. But if we show them 20%, they're going to be in the negative. They're not going to show anything. That's what he's trying to say. 30 years ago, he said, we have to increase our holiness because we are seeing so much demonigi, we're so much craziness, so much immorality, so much upside downism. Yeah, it's not normal, guys. It's legit not normal to have a world where they think so many not normal things are normal. You hear? And it's a minor population that is sticking to the grounds of being moral people. Everybody out there has a tattoo. You see a normal person, normal women, tattoos all over the place. You're thinking, what's it? What is that? What kind of stupidity is that? I mean, what kind of, usually gangster guys, used to have tattoos. But now, she's a banker, she's MBA, she's got whatever. And she's got tattoos all over. You're like, what is that? You hear? Why? Because they made this stupid immorality and this evilness to be good. It's very good. Bikers, yeah, we're good. We're part of a team. We're part of a team. And therefore we have to increase our holiness so that we can shelter our families, teach our kids that we have to be holy because we're a holy nation. And he says this world, if we keep the holiness here, in the world to come, we'll be able to see the holiness. But if we don't, then we're not going to have that share. Baruch Adonai L'olam, Amen.